basis. I have been involved in trade discussions with those two countries on and off the best part of 20 years. They are very protectionist countries. They were before we had President Trump in America. I led for the government on working with the TTIP, which we were trying to negotiate. The reason the EU-US deal had the funny title of TTIP was that we couldn't call it a free trade agreement, because the Americans said that the Congress was so hostile to the idea of free trade that you couldn't talk about a free trade agreement. We had to give it another title. And we got nowhere, even under the Obama administration, because what we particularly wanted was opening up public procurement, opening up access to services, including financial services in the United States. And I can tell you, it was completely hopeless trying to open up their market. Now, it's different with President Trump. The hopes with President Trump are a sign of the new golden future that is coming before us. President Trump has firstly, he's no time for WTO rules. He's been breaking them with some considerable vigour, and sooner or later he will walk out of the WTO, I think. His view of trade deals is he confronts allied partner countries. The United States should be allowed to export more to them, and they should stop exporting so much to the United States. He's enforced that on Canada and Mexico, and he's having a good go at enforcing it on China. His only interest that he's expressed in a trade deal with Britain is that we should throw open our market to American food, which is made on produced on an almost industrial scale. Thus it's very competitive in great quantities. That requires one thing. We abandon the European food standards and animal welfare standards, which the British actually played the leading part in getting to their present position in the rest of the EU, and we should adopt the standards laid down by Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate, in response to the food lobby. No sovereignty. Nobody's going to take any notice of the UK on food standards lobbying the American Congress. It is an illusion, I'll give no others. Freedom of movement, if we'd enforced freedom of movement properly when we were members, we wouldn't be in this trouble. All the anti-immigrant element of the Leave vote was not really about EU workers working here. We would be permitted, actually, to make it a condition that people had a job already arranged to come here. We were permitted to say they would have to leave if after 3 months from losing a job they had not actually got a new one. And everybody in this House and outside falls over themselves with praise for the EU workers in the National Health Service and elsewhere. It is an illusion that is waiting for us. So, what I say is, in the present bizarre position, my view is we must get on to the real negotiations. We haven't started yet. It's not possible to start to actually map out the closest possible relationship, I hope, with the EU if we're going to be forced to leave. We're in no position to start from this mad debate and sort it all out by March the 29th. It is factually impossible, not only to get the legislation through, it's impossible actually to sort out some alternative to the withdrawal agreement if it is rejected today. We should extend it, but that involves applying to the EU. It implies getting their consent. That will be quite difficult for any length of time. That's the reason I advocate we should revoke Article 50, and that is a means of delay. Revoke it, no one can stop us revoking it, and then invoke it again. I shall vote against it again, but the majority in favour of invoking Article 50 in this House is massive. Invoke it again when we have some consensus, some majority for something, and I shall annoy everybody else by giving once to my honourable friend.
Would I just say to my right honourable friend, whose speech I am admiring minute by minute, But there is one point on which he is wrong. We cannot revoke Article 50 unless we provide satisfactory evidence to the European Union that we are cancelling our departure from the European Union. Not suspending it, not pausing it, cancelling it.
Well, I'm not going to start. I haven't been in practice for 40 years. So if that is the case, I will examine it and have a look at what authority he gives me. Do we therefore prevent it for some permanently thereafter from ever invoking Article 50 again? That's a proposition that I would like to examine. In that case, we have to extend it. But what we cannot carry on doing is having this chaotic debate and in the next 70 days coming to conclusions which commit this country to a destiny which will have a huge effect on the next generation or two, because what we're heading for is leaving with no deal at all. That will be just as catastrophic as my right honourable friend, the Attorney General, has just described, and it's the one thing which the vast majority of members of Parliament are flatly against, leaving without no deal. For that reason, pragmatism, in my opinion, common sense, requires us to vote for this withdrawal agreement to try to get back to some sort of orderly progress.
Steve.